Good morning, everyone. I'm going to walk you through lesson 4 here if you haven't started on it. This is where we start getting into learning something called heading tags. If you're on lesson 1 here, you take a look at it, or on bubble 1. It talks about this H1 tag, which is, this one stands for heading 1, which is going to be your largest heading. As you step through this, it wants you to watch this little video, and it's going to explain it a little more than I'm going to do with this brief interview. So please go ahead and watch that video, and then continue on to number 3, bubble 3 here. This is where it wants you to go through and use the inspector tool. Now, I want to remind you that over here on the right side, these little things where it's just giving you little questions. If you click on that little arrow, it actually gives you the answer. So a lot of this is you sort of exploring and moving around the different sections of this to see what are these. So for example, what are headings? They're the different size sections of titles throughout a web page. And you'll notice whenever you look at a web page, the font size is different sizes. If you click here, it'll actually tell you, oh, how do you do that? And if you read through this, you'll see H1, which is heading number 1, is actually your largest heading, your largest text. So it works a little bit differently than when you would type on like Microsoft Word, where you would choose a font size. Websites use heading tags. If I click this inspector tool, I can go over here and say, oh, okay, what's making the My Hobbies so big? If I look over here on the left side, it's showing, oh, because that's a heading 1 size. And you can see how that's being used with an opening and a closing heading tag on both sides of whatever it is that I'm trying to make larger. So same thing here with soccer. It's a little bit smaller. Heading 4 right here for 5 years is smaller yet. And obviously there's one in between there called heading 3, and you can kind of see what that looks like. But as you walk through these different bubbles on lesson 4, you're going to finally get to one here where it wants you to inspect these and take a look at them. And I believe number 5 here is where it wants you to go in. No, actually number 4 here is where it wants you to go in, and it wants you to change these tags so the headings are in order from the biggest to the smallest. So right now, it doesn't make sense. It's looking like, oh, this is the biggest, but clearly it's not the biggest. So I'm going to go over here on the left, and I know from my previous reading that heading 1 is my largest heading. So I'm going to go over here on the left, change that one to an H1, and it makes that big. Then I'm going to go down here, change this one to an H2, H3, H4, and so on. And it should put these in order. Now, something about these lessons is that they do allow you to just kind of click finish and look like you skipped over it, turns it green, it looks like you did it right. But when I go in to look at these and grade these, I'll be able to see that you didn't actually do the activities. So these are a little bit harder, that they do allow you to move on sort of accidentally if you didn't do it right. So if you have a question about one of these, make sure you read the do this, and because that's the instructions on how to do it. And if you're really confused, put a comment into the Google Classroom, and me or one of your classmates will answer you. So make sure you're specific, like, oh, hey, I have a question on lesson 4, bubble 4. What am I supposed to do? Right now, when you get to number 5 here, it's actually asking you to do a little mini quiz. That's why it's got a little purple check mark. When you get on to number 6, make sure you're looking at this. It wants you to actually take this paragraph and make it look more like it does over here in the code. So if you see where it says My Pets, clearly that's supposed to be a title, right? The way they have it laid out. So I'm going to put an H1 tag around My Pets. I'm going to put my opening tag. I'm going to put my closing tag. And you can see as soon as I do that, My Pets is now large, right? I've got a little paragraph here. So I'm going to go ahead and put paragraph tags around that one. Because I want to just designate that that's where my paragraph starts and ends. And then I look down here and it talks about this person's 3 pets. Lula, which is a dog, and some details about Lula, Slowpoke the turtle, and Hamster the fish. What I would do, and this is kind of up to you as far as what sizes you want to use, but like Lula is sort of like a subtitle. So I'm going to maybe make that an H2 and go around Lula, which is the name of the pet. Put the opening and the closing tags. And if it turns pink, usually it's because I forgot something. So that's that way. And then the dog, the fact that Lula is a dog, maybe I want to make that an H3 tag. Or I could do an H4 if I put this in here and I think it looks a little too big. You know what? I don't like that. That's a little bit too big. So maybe I'm going to put it as an H4. And you can adjust this and play with it. You can see how it works. Then I got a little paragraph about Lula. Go through and do the same thing for the turtle and the fish and things like that. Right? Then you move on and it talks about a little bit of a review of headings, a little bit of a review about paragraphs. So make sure you're clicking through that. And then finally, it gets to a page here talking about problem solving. And we've talked about that earlier in the year. But if you get into number 9 here, this is where you're actually going to create the beginnings of your web page that is going to go through the rest of these lessons. So make sure that you spend some time coming up with the way that you want this website to be laid out. And they're interconnected. So everything you do here on lesson 4 on this last bubble, which will be bubble 10, will carry over to the last bubble on lesson 5, which then again will carry over to lesson 6 and so on. So you can see right here, it has a link, and that's a big part of this is everything you do on here is going to be carried out. So this is sort of like your final web page project, and it's giving it to you in little teeny pieces. So make sure you don't jump ahead. Notice it's giving you nothing over here other than your starting HTML. Everything you do, remember, is in between the body tags. So body is where like the visible part of my website starts. And then the closing body is where it ends. So make sure I create space in there. You really shouldn't be putting anything up here inside HTML or the header. At this point, you don't need any of those things. So I'm going to pause this video real quick and I'm going to type in some information here. If I go back to my planning page, this is my original planning page way back on lesson, I believe 1 or 2. If you remember, my website was going to be about hiking trails. I was going to list my 3 hiking trails, favorite ones around here and kind of where they were. And you can see how I could easily put this into sort of a heading 1, heading 2, heading 3 type of layout. So I'm going to pause the video real quick and show you what that would look like if I were to put that here within my web page. Hey, here you go. And you can see I actually changed a few things here. I decided I'm going to focus a little bit more on hiking trails just in Chicago. That's my title, so I put an H1 around it. And then here are my 3 trails. The Knobstone Trail, the subtitle, which I did a H3 for, is where it is. And then I did a paragraph, or really just a sentence, but using the paragraph tag around that. Same thing for Pilcher Park down in Joliet, and then the Cal-Sag trails down in Cook County, and gave a little bit of information about each one. That fulfills my requirements up here where it says do this. You need at least 2 heading sizes. I ended up doing 3, and I did at least 1 paragraph, which really I did a couple of these. Obviously, you can't show this to your partner right now, but I will see it and take a look at this. And when you finish this, you're done with lesson 4 on the very beginnings of your web page over here on the right side. So spend some time putting this together and making this look really the way you want and the framework for it. We are going to continue to add images, and we're going to add further pages about this and to this website. So this is really just the beginning framework for your website at the end of lesson 4. Good luck. Have a great day.